Hey, what's up guys? Mendel here. So today we're going to do something cool. We're going to use Frequency 2, the EQ plugin in Cubase, to clean up our metal mix. So as always, let's dig right in. Alright, so here we are in Cubase, and let's just listen to the demo first. This is the demo I created for the quad tracking guitars video and the drum mixing one. So let's take a quick listen to that, and then we'll dig into Frequency 2. So that's a pretty good foundation in my opinion. So I'll explain how we're going to use Frequency 2. So I'll start with the cymbals. So as you may know from my other videos or some mixing videos in general, a lot of times cymbals have like annoying whistle frequencies that the microphones pick up. So what you could do is notch all of them out, but most of the time that will make your sound, like your cymbal over cymbal sound, very dull. So the cool thing is, what you could do is use a dynamic EQ, which means it only ducks it down when like the frequency is present. So let's see it on the cymbals right here. So when I loop this section, this right here, and I'll solo the cymbals, open Frequency 2, when you listen closely, when the hi-hat is playing, there's a whistle frequency present. That one. So I'm gonna press play, and do notice that when the hi-hat is playing, you're gonna hear the note, but when the ride is playing, it almost disappears. So what's cool about Frequency 2, like when we use the dynamic EQ function, I can take it down and then go to the dynamic EQ settings and then use a threshold to detect that frequency, that whistle. Alright, so that sounds better to my ears. Take notice of the dipping of the dynamic EQ during the hi-hat around the beginning and the ride. And you'll notice that during the ride, it's doing much less work than when the hi-hat's playing. So now I'm going to turn it on and off so you can hear the clear difference. So stuff like this is like really cool, because normally where you would like notch it down, it would like remove that frequency constantly. But now it's most of the time working only when the hi-hat's playing. Sounds better to me. Okay, and the cool thing is you could basically apply the same thing for the guitars. So when I open Frequency here, you can see I already worked on it a bit. Let's turn it on and then off again so you can hear the clear difference. So I'll boost it so you can really hear where it was. Really cleans up the tone, right? Now, as some of you have may noticed, there's an 808 right here. Let me unmute it, and I'll just solo it. Hopefully with some good headphones or good speakers, you can hear the subs. Turn it a bit louder. So that's like a simple 808. And in metal, some of you may know, sometimes we use an 808 to like give it some more impact, like when a breakdown hits or something else, like this part. I wouldn't really use it in a song like this, but this is more for demonstration purposes. So let's take a listen to the 808. One more time. Third time with a bit more room. So what you probably can hear is that when you have the mix and the 808 comes in, it's like a big impact. But when the 808's done, like the mix almost sounds a bit thin, which isn't really a big surprise, because you have the mix and the 808 adds energy to it. And when the 808 is done, that energy is lost. So what we're going to do is use frequency 2 to even that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to sidechain the 808 to the overall mix. So when the 808 is hitting, the overall low end of the mix is being dipped. And then when the 808 is done, it goes back in, so you have an even consistency of low end. A lot of talking, but I'll show you. Here we go. Okay, so this is the 808. And this is the instrumental, which is basically the whole mix. So on the instrumental, we have frequency. And I have a tiny dip, like around 3 decibels or so, just for the low end. Then I'm going to the sidechain and add the 808. And make sure your sidechain is activated. So then make sure your dynamic EQ is turned on. And then when you double click here, you get this menu. And all the way to the right, you have sidechain input. So the 808 on sidechain 1, which should mean that this band is ignoring the whole mix and only listening to the 808. And there it was. And to me that sounds better. And we're gonna A/B it in a bit, but hear me out. So what it does, again, only when the 808 hits, this frequency is like dipping down the whole mix. In other words, making room for the 808 to breathe. And then when the 808 is done, the band goes back up. So instead of having low end of the main mix and the 808 on top, it's more like you have the main mix which dip down to make room for the 808 and then goes back to normal. One more time. Let's do it a bit more aggressive so you can hear like the whole impact. This is way overdone. I would never do this in a mix, but this is just to demonstrate how good this works. Did you hear that? Okay, one more time. So that was way too much. So let's do a bit less, or more or less. Now when I turn it off, like in my studio here, I can feel it's like the impact's cool, but after that it sounds a bit more thin. And when I turn it on again, it sounds more even out, which is crucial, especially when you like have a limiter on the master bus to keep things in check. Now this whole concept of the sidechaining dynamic EQ thing can be applied to millions of things. I'll show you one more thing which I sometimes do, but the thing I'd advise you to do is just experiment with it, like sidechain different things to make room for the mix. So the thing I'm going to show you is to make room for the snare. So sometimes the snare drum can get lost in the mids of like the lower mids of the bass and the guitar. So what I'll do is I'll take the bass, I'll take the guitars group and route that to a new channel, going to an instrumental called bass and guitars. So basically, this is just bass and guitar. So what I'll do is I'll add frequency 2. Just like that. Go to the sidechain menu, add sidechain, and I'm gonna add the snare sample. And let's add the snare as well. Activate the sidechain. So it's around the lower mid, so I'll use band 3. And I'm first gonna look where the snare peaks, like the low end of the snare. So we use the comparison view. So you can see it peaks around 200, 190 Hertz. All right. So let's put in 200 Hertz or 190. Activate dynamic Q. Now double click like on the edge, internal, and some sidechain 1. If you want to have on a different sidechain channel, just press this thingy over here and you can change the input. But I'll leave it on 1 for now. So sidechain 1. And as you can see by the threshold meter, it's reacting to the snare. So I'm going to pull this down and then turn down the threshold. So this is really exaggerated, but again, I just want to show you the effect. So I'm going to put it all the way down here. Kind of make it a bit more narrow. Let's see what it does. So because it's a transient, like mainly the transient of the snare, I'm gonna like put the release all the way down. Tack a tiny bit. Like if I would do the release really slow, you'll probably hear it. Like all the body of the bass and the guitar is gone. But when I turn it down, millisecond wise, so stuff like this could really make room for basically any instrument in the mix. You could do this by putting frequency on the instrumental bus and sidechaining the vocals to frequency 2. So every time when they're screaming and stuff like that, because metal, there's a lot of screaming, that makes room in the whole mix. And you don't have to do like 20 decibels or something. It could be even like subtle, like 2 or 3 decibels on certain parts. Automate it, it's up to you. Okay, so let's A/B this. Okay, so to my ears, there's a bit more like body snap in the mix. Let's exaggerate it one more time. Yeah, normally if I would mix, I would probably put it around here or so. Cool. So that's basically it. Those are some tricks how you can use frequency 2 from Cubase in a metal mix or a rock mix. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And until then, see you next time. Cheers.